Play at Novibet.
Hello and a warm welcome to another edition of the Irish Angle on Jump To It in association with Novibet. As usual, Emma Nagle, Johnny Ward, you're back. Tell us all your news. I've been away for a few weeks, so there must be loads of things you've got to tell me.
You're back, Vinny.
Thanks very much, Johnny. Emma, you were in Punchestown yesterday, I presume, watching Noble Talent run out at the last.
I was, yeah.
Your dad's horse, yeah.
A bit uncharacteristic now, to be fair. The going was tough enough there. I'd say he was getting tired coming up to the last. But good enough crowd in Punchestown actually yesterday. So it was great. I actually saw Stephanie Roach, Puskas winner, I think. Didn't she win that prize for the best goal?
She was runner-up.
Yeah, she was there with. I saw pictures of her talking to Willie, so maybe she's in connection with a horse. But yeah, it was a strange addition to the crowd, I thought.
Good stuff, yeah. We had a big crowd on Saturday, I think, in Goran Park as well. They seem to be doing fantastic with their crowds, don't they? Their new weigh room facilities and all the rest. So they're a place going places, I suppose. Just looking at this, Johnny, 22 days to Cheltenham. It's all about to kick off. And I was looking at the big three races. Champion Hurdle, Champion Chase, Gold Cup, 3 very short price favourites, potentially 3 very small fields. What do you make of this? Is this where we're going to be the new norm for Cheltenham? We've got a whole load of other short price favourites, looking at some of them, the Mare's Chase, Dyna Blue, the Triumph, Sergino, the Mare's Hurdle, Lossy Mouth, even the Supreme at Ballyburn, potentially 4 more very short price favourites, maybe all odds on as well.
Yeah, it's fine if I suppose it's fine if you've anti-post bets on these horses, but otherwise, it's not ideal. I was never a fan of Cheltenham going to 4 days. I preferred. I've actually only been watching Cheltenham just over 20 years, but when I get into it, it was Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and there were no mares races. They brought in some races that I like, but I do feel that I think Richie Parsons kind of touched on this a bit with the Irish programme in a piece recently in the Racing Post as well, that the extending the Grade 1 programme has kind of suited a trainer like Willie Mullins, and he's been able to make hay. And in this instance with Cheltenham, he can kind of spread out his horses more, such that the likes of Lossy Mouth has this kind of waffly mares race to go for when she should be running Champion Hurdle, because I suppose the mare race, in my view, just shouldn't be at Cheltenham. There's no place for it. But having said that as well, when you're aided by the state of British racing, where we really missed you on the show last week, Vinny, when I wanted your kind of views on Paul Nicholls not running a horse in Britain because he wouldn't have acclimatized in time, having moved over from County Meath. Just shows that Paul Nicholls is scared of Cheltenham at the minute. He doesn't really want to run horses in it. To me anyway, he's one horse running in Aintree, where they might avoid Willie Mullins, like Gavin Cromwell going over to Britain with horses, because he's kind of avoiding Willie Mullins in races here. And it's become, I suppose, I hate using the word perfect storm, but it is a bit of a perfect storm. And I have to say, I'm not excited at all by Cheltenham at the moment, just with the amount of, we're going to get some good races, but way too many uncompetitive races, and these amazing clashes. I don't know, what races are you really looking forward to seeing A taking on B? I don't have that many, to be honest, at the moment.
Yeah, I'd agree. Just on that thing with Caldwell Potter and Paul Nicholls, I know I spoke to a friend of mine there about this last week, and he's worked with horses all his life, and I was saying to him about when you had the previous incident with Gordon Elliott and all the horses switching a few years ago when he sat in the dead horse, and they went to Willie and Henry and all the rest, and they all ran 3 weeks later in Cheltenham and won races in Cheltenham as well. That I was saying, but why would Nicholls do this? And he was saying, it's slightly different here, he says, because the feed, he said, the feed would be the big thing. He said it can take a horse a long time to acclimatise to a new setting, but it's more about the feed, that if they're on the same type of feed, it's not a major issue, and that sort of stuff, and the same grass and everything. I don't know whether he's right or wrong, but he thought he could see some logic in it. What do you think, Emma?
Yeah, we kind of talked about it a small bit last week. Yeah, there's a bit of logic in it, right, to be fair. It kind of depends on the horse as well. Like, some horses will be a bit quirkier, might take them a bit longer to adapt to the surroundings and stuff. So it's kind of hard to know, I suppose. Kind of have to take up a horse by horse. I know Harry Durham, I think, was saying he's open to plan. He's planning to run his ones in Cheltenham. So I suppose to rule it out so early maybe was a little bit surprising, but I think the quotes, they're kind of strong on him being a Gold Cup horse, which I was surprised by as well, because I don't think I haven't seen him in person now, to be honest, but I saw people saying he wasn't the most imposing kind of physical horse. So yeah, but they're obviously thinking long term.
Yeah, fair enough. Anyway, look, we'll move on to other things that from the last week. One of them, Johnny, Maureen Mullins passing away. Fantastic woman, fantastic age. And it's sad she's gone, but my God, she lived some life, didn't she?
Yeah, like I was saying this at the weekend of when I was sending condolences to Patrick Mullins when Paddy died. I remember distinctly that his response was more that it's sad, but we're celebrating the life he had here. You know, he had an amazing life, and that was his kind of take on it. And with Maureen, it had to be the same thing. You know, I was just texting Tony as well, and Tony was saying that she really wanted to pass away peacefully at home. And she got her wish, and I suppose they kind of deal with a bit of shock this week because, like, to have such a constant in your life, for the children, not to mind the grandchildren, she's always been there and she's always been around them. And Patrick's piece in the Racing Post was a stunning bit of journalism, just a lovely, lovely piece about her. I didn't know the lady that well, so if I met Maureen at the odd time she might be in Close Hutton when I was there, or when she was at the races, she was the most graceful individual and so sprightly, and like every time I met her, I'd comment to somebody how well she looked and how vivacious she was and how kind of positive she was about life. And I remember Tony saying as well, when I think she was at that controversial Cheltenham when the COVID thing started to hit off, like we all were. So I was there anyway. And the only thing she was giving out when she came back was that she hadn't been back in all these winners that Willie had been training. So she did a brilliantly positive attitude to life. And she was probably from a somewhat anachronistic era as well, where you didn't have female riders per se, and there wouldn't have been that many female trainers. But I've no doubt that she was a massive, massive part of the Paddy Mullins operation. And I think if you look back on the photos of the two of them together and the kids and how they look like, the kids have kind of certainly they've planted themselves in the stock as well. You can very much see, even when the photo of the three of them carrying the coffin and the sad faces, but you can still see Paddy and Maureen in all their expressions, really, the lads that were carrying the coffin. And she was a truly, truly wonderful woman. I love the fact that Goran raced on Saturday, because I think that race course was so special to her local track, and the fact that she was there to open up the Wayne Room only the other day. And if we could all live a life like her, we'd be in a very, very good place.
Yeah, I think her family should be very thankful they had such a long time with her as well. I know my mum died young, and it's always a sad reflection when you look back at the time. I was only just turned 20, I think, when my mum died, and it was just those sort of things. You always regret it, and you see people who have a long life with their mother. It's a fantastic thing.
Even Willie saying as well at the races yesterday, Vinny, that like on Racing TV, that she had time to say goodbye to everyone. Like that is just such a luxury that so many don't have that ability to do that. And it was, death is sad, but death is inevitable, and this was just a beautiful life celebrated.
Absolutely, I agree. Anyway, great woman. She loved her punting too. Jesus, she's some well-marked card, hadn't she? She was getting it from everywhere she was. Yeah, I don't know how she ever back to loser. Anyway, moving on to some other things. Emma, you put up a thing on social media during the week on some of our Twitter channels and that about underrated national hunt jockeys, and got quite a bit of traction. Lots of people had opinions. What were the most popular?
We got a lot of traction on Twitter and Facebook. A lot of people saying Danny Mullins, which I was surprised by, because I'm not really sure who's underrating Danny Mullins at this stage of his career. I think, trainers and punters both kind of held Danny in a very high regard. Maybe it's just the fact he's number one jockey for a yard. Maybe might be making people think he's underrated. I thought it was kind of a tough question. I'm kind of interested to see what you're thinking. I think there's probably a few ways you can kind of go at it, like if you're thinking about it. Underrated by punters and underrated by trainers was kind of the way I was thinking. I think underrated by punters is definitely Paul Townend. For some reason, he seems to get a lot of stick on social media. I suppose it's just because of the amount of winners he's riding, but I think Paul Townend will probably go down as one of the best riders of all time, in my opinion. Anyway, I think he very rarely gets anything wrong, and you see him win on horses who should not be winning, like the Grand National ride, Naya Maximus, even last year's Gold Cup on Galopin Des Champs. He's just a brilliant rider. I don't think punters probably appreciated enough. Like if you put kind of a lesser rider into wheelies, I think you'd see a big difference in it. But I think maybe underrated by trainers. Then I was thinking, it was kind of a tough one. But I think kind of up and coming younger riders, probably Darragh O'Keefe. Darragh's brilliant, and I think he's only 23 or 24, that kind of age. And if he got a big job, I'd say he would go right to the top. There's loads you could mention, like JJ Slevin, Mark Walsh, probably a little bit underrated, Philip Enright. Kind of blessed, I suppose, in the country. You've got so many good riders, but yeah, interesting to see what you think about it as well.
Yeah, Mark Walsh is one for me, I have to say. I've always felt that he's one of the best out there. Now, look, he's only underrated by other trainers because they probably can't get him. Is the first thing, because he's basically attached to JP McManus and rides the best of his all the time. But I think he's very good when the money's down. Mark Walsh wins. That's the bottom line, isn't it? In general terms, I've always felt that claiming riders, the new ones coming along either on the flat or over jumps, that when they start off, when they have their claim, they can ride a lot of winners very quickly, and they're the ones to latch on to. A lot of the bigger punters do stick with them, that they see them. They get all the top rides and the big handicaps and everything else, and they're always on fancied ones like that. Danny Gilligan is in Galway as well. Gordon putting him away for keeping his claim and everything else. So they're the sort of ones to keep an eye on. And for me, the other one, not so much over jumps, more on the flat, I suppose, is girls. They tend to be definitely over or underrated by most punters and also trainers to some level. But the likes of Holly Doyle, Hayley Turner, even that Joanna Mason, Siobhan Rutledge, there's a list of them that you can make a few quid out of if you see them on one you think you fancy, because they ride extremely well. What about you, Johnny? Johnny Slevin is the obvious one, or JJ Slevin?
JJ Slevin, yeah. Like I actually kind of agree with you on the female aspect of it. Like, I tend to back female riders more as a positive than a negative, because I think this is kind of, I don't know, this is a bit of a general thing to say, but I often think female riders get a nicer tune out of horses, and maybe the market kind of can be a little bit, especially if it's an inexperienced rider. Sometimes female riders, for me, that you can get a better price on the horses. I was just looking at the list here on IrishRacing.com today. Like, see, I just think the standard is, I got myself in trouble over going down this rabbit hole at a podcast lately, live show, where I said I hardly ever criticize jockeys. Like, first of all, I don't think I'm in a place to do it, and second of all, I think the standard is exceptional in Ireland. Like, it's very, very rare if I'm at the TV, or if I'm really looking at race in Ireland, it's very, very rare I'll call out a ride. And maybe that's just maybe that's me being too generous. I just think the standard is exceptional. Like, you look at some of the jockeys here that aren't even in the top 20, 25 in Ireland here, like Jody Townend, Ben Harvey, the likes of Oren McGill. Like, these are really good jockeys who wouldn't have that many opportunities. And then the ones you mentioned, Paul Townend is he's a very interesting one, because he doesn't really ride for outside stables, rarely anyway, and he obviously, so he rides so many horses that are well fancied. People would have this opinion, sure they'd win anyway with anyone on them. And Paul is definitely an interesting one, because I think he's exceptionally talented, but probably doesn't get the credit he deserves because he's with Willie Mullins. But I'd agree with you on Mark Walsh. I've thought he's been underrated for a long time. Mark's kind of coming towards the veteran stage to an extent now as well, so it's hopefully a time for him to kick on. I've always thought he's exceptionally talented, loved his style on a horse, always in control kind of thing as well. And the last one I'd say is actually Jack Kennedy. I think Jack is probably as good as there is, and I think it's only now we're appreciating how good he is, because he doesn't have a run of injuries. But I just think the standard is exceptional. Like, the Irish riders are so good, but I think very good riders look average because they don't get the opportunities, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's probably a harder time than ever as well for the jockeys now. I actually saw an interesting post on Twitter the other day. Someone posted the Trainers' Championship from 2003, I think it was, and you go down through it, and there was probably like 7 or 8 trainers kind of all along the same level of winners, and probably all training graded winners as well. But I suppose now, like, if you're not like first jockey to Willie or Henry or Gordon, you're not really going to be riding grade 1 winners and getting grade 1 horses, which might make you think the likes of like Darrow O'Keefe and maybe even Danny are getting underrated a small bit, just because they're not getting the grade 1 horses, I suppose. So yeah, like Johnny was saying, like the talent is probably as good as ever, but it's just there isn't as much of a spread as it used to be, which might make it kind of the balance of the levels of jockeys a little bit more.
I would have thought as well that I would have thought it was pretty good. I was a little game I play with myself sometimes, but I'm not really mad interested in the race. If I see a jockey coming to the third last or second last, I always thought it was reasonably good at knowing who that jockey was from his or her style. And some jockeys have quite a unique style. But if you were to play a game with Irish punters, even people within the racing game, and you had 10 random jockeys good jockeys, random jockeys riding in a race that's put on just for show. Can you name these jockeys? And the horses all have to have a reasonable chance, so they're not all half them aren't tailed off. So 10 horses of reasonable ability, put them in a race. You can't recognise the jockey apart from his or her kind of expression on the horse. And how good would people be at figuring out? Yeah, that's him, that's her. Which would be an interesting game, because I think you'd be surprised how bad some people are at it.
Yeah. The one you could always pick out was Ruby Walsh. My God, he was different.
Carberry was kind of good. Carberry was either Carberry or Dennis O'Regan, because Dennis was he basically tried to be Paul Carberry almost.
Yeah, and then you've Keith Donoghue. He's very much in the Carberry rank as well. He's another underrated jockey, I would have thought, but he's got struggles with his weight is the issue, isn't it? That's probably why he's not at the absolute top of it, because he's a very, very accomplished rider. The other
it's
one,
something we don't talk about enough, Finney. Sorry to interrupt. It's something like, because if you talk about the ability of footballers left, right, and centre, and invariably, okay, the horse, whatever percentage you want to say is down to the horse in a race. It might be 90. It might be, you look at charity races and you could say, well, maybe it's more down to we underestimate how good the jockeys are. But we never really talk. If you put 100 jockeys in a room and they had a big debate about each other's style and all that, I find JJ Slevin was on a podcast with us lately, and he'd been doing an interview with Patrick Mullins talking about his flat riding style. And I'd say 90% of the people reading that article didn't know what he was talking about, because we don't look into it enough. And jockeys have very, very unique styles, but it's just something that we don't talk about enough. And it's actually a fascinating, unexplored area, I think.
Yeah, I suppose we don't know enough about it. That's the bottom line, isn't it? But I know we've done some stuff, and Emma's done some stuff in the past as well with Paddy Flood from the Race Apprentice Centre, and he trains a lot of jockeys, and he's very observant about the little things. Like just watching a race, he can see just a little incident somewhere. I've had a few pints with Paddy down the years watching racing, and my God, the things he picks out, he really does see things that an ordinary person wouldn't see. You see a bit of this with Ruby Walsh as well when he's doing the TV coverage. He can pick out stuff that an ordinary mortal wouldn't see either.
And it's brilliant TV. It's brilliant TV when they do that. Like when Ruby will pick out some tiny little thing, or Paddy will, that he did with his left hand, and you're like, I would never, ever, ever see that.
Yeah. I saw it. Look, I'm going off topic here completely, but I saw a little clip on the internet yesterday with some footballer talking about that goalkeeper, Peter Cech, and his ability at saving penalties. And I thought it was very interesting. He was talking about, he was there in some match anyway, and he said Cech could spend up to 8 hours looking at videos of the opposition players in case there was going to be a penalty, and he'd watch through all their penalties for the last 10 or 15 years they'd taken or whatever. Anyway, this guy goes up to take his penalty, and he says he's running up, he's thinking, I'm going to put it in the left corner, you're going to have to hit this hard, because Cech is a huge big man, huge hands, he can cover the whole goal. So your man went anyway, stands up, hits his penalty, and as he's running up to it, instead of going to the left corner, he changes his mind at the last second, hits it into the right corner, and Cech nearly gets his fingers to it, but it goes in the corner. So afterwards, he said they were in after the game. They both happened to be in for random urine sample tests or whatever, drug tests after the thing. They were waiting in some little ante room, sitting there waiting to be called in. And Cech turned around to me and says, you changed your mind with that penalty, didn't you? And what do you mean? He says, you were going to go to my left, but you shot it into the right at the last second. That's what got me. And he was just saying, he says, I have no idea how he knew that, but it just goes to show it's the same with the jockeys, that there's an awful lot more to it. There's no doubt about it. And that's the thing that we often, when you see racing, we watch racing all the time on TV and everywhere else, and we're all guilty of it. People saying, oh, that's a fantastic ride. And it's always the winning ride. We say it's a fantastic ride. We never say that generally that someone got it wrong when they finish second, third, fourth. In the odd occasion we do, but the vast majority of the time we're picking out the winner, saying it was a fantastic ride. But there must be lots of little things people do wrong in races that's the difference between winning and losing, isn't it? It's just that split second decision. Should I go out? Should I go in? Will I stay where I am? Whatever it is that they do. And that's what makes the difference. You only look at your Ryan Moore in the Breeders' Cup going up the inside and Augustus Rodin, and we say greatest ride of all time or whatever, but it's split second stuff, isn't it? If he'd have waited a quarter of a second longer, maybe that gap isn't there, and so on. So
I think it's timing. I think timing is probably the most important, like speaking as a non-jockey, but like even when I interviewed Terence O'Brien there last year, at one point Terence had a great run of form of Blaze. John Chinnick was riding a few winners for him, and he said John Chinnick came in and he's the most marvellous hands on a horse. And these are things just you will never, ever see. But Terence O'Brien already saw with, again, one of these kind of middle-of-the-road riders in terms of the jockeys table in Ireland, too. John Chinnick wouldn't get that many rides, and he's a guy who completely here believes in him.
Yeah, I think kind of knowing the horses, like kind of one more to mention, Sean Flanagan, I think, is really underrated. He had 2 big winners the weekend, but remember he rode a horse for us one day. I can't even remember where it was now, but he had never rode the horse before. It was just a spare ride that was going, and he came back in saying, "Oh, sorry, I should have won that. If I knew the horse a bit better, I would have done this and done that." And just getting that feet, like, you watching the race now, we weren't thinking, "Oh, he should have won this," but Sean comes back in saying, "If I did this at one, if I went a little bit earlier, if I held on," I can't remember what he was saying exactly, but kind of getting the feedback from riders as well is a big thing, I think, for trainers, and there's a lot of them are very good at it. And yeah, Sean's definitely a really underrated jockey as well.
Yeah, good stuff. Look, we'll move on to another jockey who's, well, for different reasons in the news, Dylan Kitts. I can't believe all this that's going on with him. He's been banned since the 7th of July last year over a ride he gave to a horse called Hilson at Worcester. Now, in fairness, it looked like he stopped the horse. There's no other way of talking about it, that's what happened. It certainly looks that way, and there's an investigation that's been ongoing, and there's all sorts of things he hasn't been getting involved with the authorities in the UK over it, and that's why they were banning him from even going to race meetings or anything. But anyway, that's been rescinded for the moment because seemingly he has started to engage with them. But what do you make of this, Johnny? Like, it's hard to know. That this kid will probably never ride again, is the sound of it, isn't it? Is that a fair sanction for stopping a horse in Worcester?
No, it's not. Because I think most jockeys stop horses at some point or another. That's just the reality of it. I was saying this to myself yesterday. I was getting on. I don't know if I was getting on the bus with the train or something. I said that if you get involved in backing horses, the one thing you have to make peace with at the start is that not all jockeys are trying to win, and not all horses will be trying to win, because it's sometimes better to finish 17th than 10th. And this was basically a simple horses are getting handicapped, crap happens, and you just have to, that's part of the game. And as much as we're going to give out about it, I accept that as part of the game. We all like a bit of the nod and the wink as well, and we like a bit of crack with a fella landing a gamble and all of that, but you can't go too far and all of that. So Dylan Kitts' situation, visually, I guess, I don't know, did either of you ever see anything worse?
Possibly, yeah, once or twice maybe. But well, it was a very bad incident. There's no question about it.
But I've sympathy for him. And I like the fact, Vinny, that you're saying you have to match the punishment with the crime. I think it's important to note what happened in relation to the trainer and the owner after this incident. And I can't speak for either of them or the jockey here, but you can be 100% certain that there's an awful lot more to this than the jockey, who was kind of like the messenger being shot here in some respects, and I do have some sympathy for
him. Yeah. The other thing is the horse itself. I had a look back at the form. The horse didn't run since July, and they came back out last month. It's gone to a different trainer now. It's with a guy, Alan Jones, has switched from Chris Honor. That's the 4th stable the horse has been in. It was beaten 38 lengths when it reappeared at Sutton last month in a 2.5 mile handicap hurdle. It's only rated 88 or something. Gavin Cromwell trained this horse as well. Had it for a couple of years. 11 runs for Gavin Cromwell, never won. Now, we're going to talk about Gavin Cromwell, who had a fantastic weekend, sending 2 more over to the UK, winning big pots again at the weekend. But Gavin Cromwell's well able to train winners, and he couldn't train this to win. So the horse is probably bordering on useless, I would have thought. What do you think, Emma?
Yeah, he's probably no superstar, right? And you'd kind of imagine they just have let him run and take his chance and try and win a race rather than whatever messing was going on. But yeah, I kind of agree on the don't shoot the messenger part. Like, you have to punish the jockey, I suppose. Like, they can't, obviously, he had part in it, but I don't think this claiming rider went out and intentional or not, I suppose, speculation, but I don't think it was his plan if there was a plan to stop a horse. So yeah, I think in this kind of thing, a jockey has to be punished, but I think ultimately if there's proof that a horse is being stopped, the blame kind of lands with the owner and trainer, you'd imagine, more so than the jockey.
Yeah, and the trainer it's very important to read what the trainer said after this. You can jump to your own conclusions, but the trainer wasn't happy at all.
Yeah, it's fair enough. He doesn't train the horse anymore either, so I don't know what that's about, but look at it. We'll leave it with it. Let's look at last week's racing. Plenty of things to go through. The first one that we briefly touched on it is Haydock on Saturday. Gavin Cromwell goes over, sends 2 horses over. Yeah, man, wins 56,950 sterling. Now is the hour wins 31,322, over 100,000 euro he brought home there with the 2 horses. He's still the only one really hitting these on a regular basis, these big pots in the UK. Sean Flanagan rode both of them as well, who you mentioned earlier there, Emma. It's great placing again, isn't it, from Gavin Cromwell?
Yeah, it was class. I think he was only rated around 117 when he went over to England first. Well, in Ireland anyway, he was beaten off 114, I think, up the north there one day. And he's gone over to England the last 2 times. I think he's picked up the guts of £80,000 in 2 runs in the UK. Like, I mean, it's some placing for a horse who's probably, in terms of Ireland, probably one of the middle kind of decent handicap horse, but yeah, it's brilliant placing. And Gavin's done so well with these horses going to the UK. I don't know what his strike rate is exactly, but this year in particular, he's kind of targeting, good prize money on a Saturday there in England, kind of maybe a race an ordinary trainer mightn't think of going for. And yeah, he's executed it perfectly with two horses, I suppose. Those kind of horses can be hard to win with in Ireland, and the opportunities were there to win nice prize money in the UK, and he did it well.
Yeah, let's look back at some of the other stuff I saw from the week. Tully Hill winning during the week. Penny beginning to drop at that horse, Johnny. Supreme Novice hurdle entry. I wouldn't be certain he'd go there, would you? What did you make of it?
No, I suppose it's just a shout on Gavin. I think Troy Cullen deserves some credit as well. Troy joined the operation, and I think mainly for race planning and all that. A lot of you know the family well. I think they're from French Park and Roscommon, well involved in the breeding side of things. But like Gavin's place in the horses has been absolutely outstanding. And I was at Limerick when the Albert Bartlett trial horse, when he was I think he was like 20-1 into about 2-1 at Limerick one day in a poor enough race, and he was about 10 lengths clear and fell at the second last, and now he's gone over and won a trial at odds of 12-1 won well. So Gavin's been fantastic. In terms of the weekend itself, that was a hard race to price up, Vinny, because Edward O'Grady obviously thinks a lot of his horse, and I think if you're looking at the morning line show, or maybe the sort of the night before betting on the race, Tully Hill was put in. When I tipped up Tully Hill on Saturday, he was 5-2 with the bookmaker. I think we only one bookmaker price on, but he was 5-2. I thought each way that has to be a bet, because he's sure he finished the first three. He's the best of the Willie Mullins horses, and they think a lot of him. But No Flies in him was really weak in the betting. But the only proviso I'd have about the race at the moment is the ground is so bad that I think a lot of horses just aren't really going through with it. And Tully Hill relishes that ground. He's a real staying type as well once he got his jumping together. But Cheltenham will be a different test for him. And you'd imagine, be different ground. For all that, he does look kind of like one of those stairs that they might end up running the race. But on the face of it, it was a very, very good performance. But the Supreme will be a very, very different test.
Yeah, I wouldn't be certain he'll run, to be honest with you, because the first thing for me is Willie tends to blanket bomb the entries for these novice hurdles with his horses. Tully Hill only has a Supreme entry is the first thing, and he's already saying before Sunday that the horse was more of a stayer. So it seemed odd he was only in the Supreme. I think that was just I don't know. I just think when you look at all the horses he ran at the weekend, there's lots of them, and other winners. He had loads of winners over the weekend as well. And he's saying about a lot of them, they're not even going to go to Cheltenham. They're ones for other spring festivals or putting away till next year. I have a feeling Tully Hill wouldn't run myself, but look, we'll wait and see.
The mad thing as well is he didn't run. The two horses that finished first and second in the Lawlers and Naas didn't go to the Dublin Racing Festival, and neither did Tully Hill. And this is a festival in which he basically won all the grade ones and dominated the novice division, which is staggering when you think about it.
Yeah, it's true. Emma, what did you think? Tully Hill, is he one for you? Would you think he'd turn up in the Supreme?
I was impressed by him now, to be fair. I didn't overly fancy him after his first run in Punches down there to start the year. His jumping was bad, but they've done a good job with him, in fairness, to get him going. Looks like a different horse now. I suppose Willie kind of has the whole hand in the Supreme. Like, when you look at it, he's got the first three in the betting: Ballyburn, Tully Hill, Mystical Power. One of them's going to have to step up, you'd imagine. Tully Hill's only in the Supreme. If Cheveley Park want to go, I mean, it's the only place he can go. So maybe Mystical Power or Ballyburn might step up in distance. I'm not sure. But if Tully Hill's probably good enough to win a weak-ish looking Supreme, and it's kind of looking not maybe like the hottest one, depending on where Willie wants to send his best ones, I suppose. I wouldn't rule him out of it now completely, to be honest. I thought he got a brilliant ride as well, kind of dictated from the front, and it was all over kind of early when he got out in front and that kind of rhythm.
Yeah. Ballyburn, Jesus, it would be a bit of a surprise if he switched at this stage, wouldn't it? Because he looks almost nailed on for the Supreme. I don't know. I think
I saw a quote saying David Casey wanted to send him to the Ballymore. I'm not sure who might get the final word in that, but it's look at Willie, I suppose you'd be guessing until the week before.
You literally till declaration time, I'd say you'll be guessing till more or less. Yeah. Looking at some of the other ones, he'd Saint Sam. He'd lots of winners over the last week, and Gordon had a pretty good week too, and Henry de Brom added a few winners as well. What was your pick of them, Emma?
My pick of them, I'd say Lantry Lady was probably the one that impressed me most. Now, it was like, I suppose it wasn't the best Red Mills hurdle, to be fair, but it was still a big ask, I thought, to go into a Grade 2 hurdle, like second start there for Henry. Ground was really, really tough as well, but I think she's out of a half sister of Annie Power. And yeah, she's definitely got a big engine. I was kind of surprised when she opened up. I think she was odds-on favourite there when the market opened for up first. I was a bit surprised because Gordon's lad was a lot more experienced, kind of more battle-hardened. But yeah, I could see why afterwards. Yeah, she looks like she's a massive engine, and Henry does so well with these mares. I think they're talking about maybe sending her to Cheltenham, but she's definitely one to follow long-term as well, I'd say.
Yeah, nothing stick out for you, Johnny, of ones you think might be Cheltenham bound at least.
I'm not sure she is, but Lantry Lady for me as well. Like, I'm like Emma. I thought she shouldn't have been favourite because she was wearing a tongue tie and she hadn't been seen for a year. And I said on Friday, I found the race hard to price up, but I wouldn't have met her favourite. And when you look at the problem with the racing at the weekend, like I tipped up Barrier in the first race of Corn. I tipped up a horse 2 days previously who looked like he was going to win turn into the straight and ended up finishing fifth. I tipped up Dunboyne yesterday. He ended up pulling himself up coming to the last. He got that tired for the second race running as he did at the test days. I'm still not sure is he just a complete thief of a horse or whether he was actually just legless from all his effort over the last 2 races, because some of the horse, like basically Dying to Win, who probably went quite short in running after making the run and in the Red Mills trial, ended up being 84 lengths behind second. Brilliant Question, who's not devoid of ability, was beaten a further 86 lengths. And you look at the body language of Jack Kennedy and Rachel Blackmore coming into the straight in what wasn't a great Red Mills. They were really, really trying to hold on as late as they could because the ground was so bad. And What's Up Darling, who travelled well, was still beaten nearly 10 lengths. But Lantry Lady, given her profile, the fact that they seem to be a bit surprised at her winning first time out, that she might need the run. She looks really, really talented, particularly when she gets to that ground. I think we're talking about an exceptionally good mare here, but I still think the ground is so bad at the moment in Ireland, I'd be a little bit wary of results generally.
Yeah, fair enough, yeah. The ground has been terrible, I have to say. I went out for a walk yesterday. I couldn't believe how soft it is underfoot when you go out walking in the likes of the Curragh at the moment. Emma, have you a horse to follow? We'll finish up with that because we've been running a bit long, I think, on this show. So if you want to follow from last week.
I was going to give Lantry Lady as I want to follow, to be honest.
Okay.
Yeah, I just thought she was really good, showed a big engine, and yeah, it was a good performance after such a long layoff on tough ground.
Great stuff. Johnny, have you one?
I'm the same. Yeah, I'm the same. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if she's even entered for Cheltenham. It mightn't be her plan, and she goes very well on that ground. But like, you know, in fairness, she beat What's Up Darling, getting weight and all that. But he is a good horse. He ran well in the Royal Bond, and she destroyed him at the end. And distance-wise, chasing-wise, she seems to be a bit of a blank canvas. Like, so, very, very exciting type.
She is in the mare's hurdle. Not sure where they go though.
Yeah. All right, I'll give you one anyway. Grand National Trial winner. Where it all began. Gordon Elliott, Jack Kennedy. Gordon Elliott, after winning this race 5 times in the last 6 years, by Yates is the first thing, and obviously stays all day. Looked in trouble turning in, looked like it mightn't even be placed, but ends up winning 16 lengths. He's talking about the Kim Muir or Irish Grand National. I'm not sure the Kim Muir would be the one, but the Irish Grand National would certainly be an interesting one for that, where it all began. Anyway, that's my thoughts.
Can I ask him, sorry, you said by Yates stays all day. So Dunboyne is by Yates. And he stays all day until he doesn't want to jump the last Emma. What would you do with a horse like this?
We had the same problem yesterday. Didn't want to jump the last
The ground is so bad. I'm actually willing to give the horse an out, because he did it at Gorn in the tests, but he was he was so tired. I'm actually wondering, was he just too tired? He said, I'm not jumping this.
The ground was real tough yesterday. Our horse had one in Limerick on very hard ground as well, but he blew a lot harder yesterday now in Punchestown, which I was a bit surprised by. It was really attritional, so you'd forgive a horse for it now, in fairness, I think.
You'd be in danger of Paul Byrne coming in to buy your noble talent now after running out. He loves those ones that runs out.
Yeah, the
modus operandi lately.
The phone is charged if he's listening.
I don't know if he wants to buy horse that run out anymore, but here we go.
Yeah, there you are. Anyway, look, thanks for the chat. Thanks for joining us, and thanks to everyone who's watched. And make sure now if you are gambling, gamble responsibly. And the other thing is keep your powder dry. Cheltenham only 22 days away, so it won't be long now. 3 weeks to Cheltenham. And we'll see you all again next week, when hopefully we'll have a bit more to talk about. I see there's an interesting card Wednesday in Punchestown this week. We've got Majestic Force of Henry de Bromhead's real wide margin point-to-point winner was declared in error for Sunday, but runs Wednesday. And Gallimar So is in as well. So interesting card. And there's plenty more action during the week. So we'll have a good chat next week about it all. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.